Olivia Reed stood before her mirror, examining her reflection carefully. The worn jeans and plain blue hoodie looked nothing like the tailored suits she typically wore. At 47, she had spent over 20 years climbing through the legal ranks, from public defender to respected district judge. Today's mission, however, required leaving her professional appearance behind. 7 days, she murmured, adjusting the hoodie's drawstrings. 7 days before she would officially take over as presiding judge at the Westlake County Courthouse, replacing the retiring Judge Harrington. Westlake had earned a troubling reputation. It was the courthouse with the highest number of complaints about unfair treatment of ordinary citizens. It was where people without expensive lawyers reportedly received noticeably harsher sentences. Olivia had built her career on fairness and accountability. When Chief Justice Torres approached her about this position, she had accepted with one condition: she needed to observe the court dynamics herself before taking over. "You want to do what?" Chief Justice Torres had asked, eyebrows raised. "I need to see how that courtroom actually operates when they don't know who's watching," Olivia had explained. "No special treatment, no performances. I want to witness how everyday people are treated." Torres had eventually, though reluctantly, agreed. "Your official introduction to the staff is scheduled for next Monday. Until then, you're on your own." Now, Olivia checked her watch. The Parker case was scheduled for 10 a.m., a straightforward hearing that had somehow dragged into 3 years of procedural delays. The case file showed a pattern: postponements whenever the Parker family's court-appointed lawyer requested additional time, while the opposing counsel from Blackwell and Associates received immediate accommodations. She grabbed her worn leather bag, slipping in her credentials and appointment letter just in case. Not that she planned to reveal herself today. This was strictly reconnaissance. Olivia drove to the courthouse, purposely parking in the public lot rather than the reserved judicial spaces. As she walked through the main entrance, she blended perfectly with the crowd of concerned citizens, family members, witnesses, defendants, and spectators. No one gave her a second glance as she passed through security. Following the posted signs, she made her way to Courtroom 3. The polished wooden doors loomed ahead, intimidating by design. Olivia had seen it countless times, how the very architecture of justice could silence those it was meant to serve. She entered quietly, taking a seat in the back row. The courtroom was already filling with lawyers in crisp suits, clerks shuffling papers, and the court reporter setting up equipment. The Parker family sat huddled together: mother, father, and their daughter Maya, whose college fund had vanished in what they claimed was financial advisor misconduct. Olivia observed how the bailiff chatted amicably with the defense attorney while barely acknowledging the Parkers. She noted how the court clerk rolled her eyes when Maya timidly approached, asking where their appointed lawyer might be. "He'll get here when he gets here," the clerk said dismissively. "Take your seat." The atmosphere shifted as side doors opened and Judge Harrington entered in his flowing black robes. In his 60s, with silver hair and an imposing presence built over 30 years on the bench, he commanded immediate respect. "All rise," called the bailiff. As Olivia stood with everyone else, she steeled herself. Today she wasn't Judge Reed. Today she was just another observer in a system that too often forgot who it was meant to serve. The proceedings began with the usual formalities. Judge Harrington called the Parker case with practiced indifference, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. Olivia noticed how he specifically acknowledged the defense counsel by name while referring to the plaintiffs simply as the other party. When the Parkers' court-appointed attorney finally arrived 10 minutes late and breathlessly apologizing, Harrington's disapproval was obvious. "Mr. Geller, once again you demonstrate your disregard for this court's schedule," he remarked dryly, eliciting chuckles from the regular courthouse staff. Olivia watched as Maya Parker shrank in her seat, her parents exchanging worried glances. This was their financial future at stake, yet the proceedings carried on as if their presence was merely an inconvenience. 20 minutes into the hearing, Olivia found herself growing increasingly frustrated. The defense attorney had been granted his third extension for document discovery, while the judge had summarily dismissed Mr. Geller's request for the same consideration. Without fully intending to, Olivia found herself on her feet. "Excuse me," she said, her voice clear and steady. The courtroom fell silent. All eyes turned toward her, the unknown woman in a blue hoodie interrupting court proceedings. Judge Harrington looked up, clearly annoyed by the interruption. "Ma'am, this is not a town hall meeting. Please be seated or leave my courtroom." Olivia stood her ground. "I apologize, Your Honor, but there seems to be an inconsistency in how procedural requests are being handled. If the defense is granted additional time for discovery, shouldn't the plaintiffs be afforded the same opportunity?" The defense attorney turned to stare at her, affronted. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The Parkers looked both startled and hopeful at this unexpected intervention. Judge Harrington's face flushed slightly. "And you are a concerned observer," Olivia replied evenly. "Well, concerned observer," Harrington said, sarcasm dripping from every word, "when you pass the bar and practice law for 30 years, your opinion on courtroom procedure might carry some weight. Until then, you will sit down, or I will have you removed." Several attorneys chuckled. The bailiff took a step toward Olivia. She remained composed, even as embarrassment threatened to color her cheeks. This wasn't about her pride. She needed to see how this played out, how far Harrington would go when challenged by someone he deemed beneath him. "I understand," she said, taking her seat again. "Thank you for the clarification, Your Honor." But Judge Harrington wasn't finished with her yet. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing as he studied the woman who had dared to question his courtroom. "Actually," Judge Harrington said, removing his glasses and setting them deliberately on the bench, "since our visitor is so concerned with the proceedings, perhaps she would care to enlighten us further." Olivia remained seated, aware of every eye in the courtroom now fixed on her. "You," Harrington pointed directly at her. "Approach the bench." A hush fell over the courtroom. The court reporter paused, fingers hovering over her stenotype. The Parkers watched with wide eyes as Olivia rose from her seat and walked calmly to stand before the judge's bench. Up close, Harrington's contempt was even more apparent. He looked down at her from his elevated position, taking in her casual attire with a dismissive glance. "Your name for the record," he demanded. "Olivia Reed," she answered truthfully. "And what exactly is your interest in these proceedings, Ms. Reed? Are you a friend of the plaintiffs? A relative, perhaps?" "I'm an observer with an interest in judicial procedure," Olivia replied. Harrington's eyebrows shot up. "An observer? With an interest in judicial procedure," he repeated, his tone making it clear how ridiculous he found her statement. "And where did you receive your legal education, Ms. Reed?" She could have answered truthfully, Harvard Law, class of 2003, with honors. Instead, she simply said, "I've studied the law, Your Honor." This elicited the reaction she expected. Harrington leaned back in his chair and laughed, a sound quickly joined by chuckles from the attorneys and court staff familiar with his moods. The defense attorney smirked openly, while even the Parkers' lawyer looked embarrassed for her. "You've studied the law," Harrington repeated, making air quotes with his fingers. "How illuminating. And based on this study, you feel qualified to interrupt my courtroom and question my decisions." Olivia maintained her composure. "I was merely noting what appeared to be an inconsistency in procedure." "What appears inconsistent to the untrained often has sound legal basis," Harrington countered. "Something you would understand if you had any actual legal expertise." He gestured broadly to the courtroom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a legal scholar in our midst today. Perhaps we should all defer to Ms. Reed's expertise." More laughter rippled through the gallery. Olivia noticed a few uncomfortable faces among the spectators, people who recognized the public humiliation for what it was but were powerless to intervene. "Tell me, Ms. Reed," Harrington continued, clearly enjoying himself now, "in your studied opinion, how should I rule on the matter before us?" "It was a trap, of course." "Answer, and she'd be overstepping further. Refuse, and she'd confirm his assertion that she had no place speaking up." "I wouldn't presume to tell you how to rule, Your Honor," she replied carefully. "I was simply advocating for consistent application of procedural allowances." Advocating. Harrington's voice rose slightly. You have no standing to advocate for anything in my courtroom. This isn't a social media forum where anyone with an opinion gets to chime in. He leaned forward, his expression hardening. This is a court of law, Ms. Reed. It operates according to rules and protocols established over centuries. It requires years of education and experience to navigate properly. Your hoodie and good intentions don't qualify you to question how I run these proceedings. The defense attorney nodded approvingly. Even the bailiff was smirking now. Perhaps next time you feel the urge to offer legal commentary, Harrington continued, you might consider appropriate attire and credentials. At minimum, a basic understanding of courtroom etiquette. He waved his hand dismissively. You may return to your seat. If you disrupt these proceedings again, you will be removed. Is that clear? Perfectly clear, Your Honor, Olivia replied, her voice steady despite the public dressing down. As she turned to walk back to her seat, she caught Maya Parker's eye. The young woman looked defeated, as if Olivia's humiliation had confirmed what she already suspected, that justice here was not designed for people like them. Olivia had seen enough. But she wasn't done yet. She returned to her seat, dignity intact despite the public mockery. The courtroom gradually returned to business, but something had changed. Curious glances were cast her way. A few courthouse regulars whispered among themselves. The proceedings continued with Harrington ruling predictably in favor of the defense's motion while denying the Parkers' request. Olivia made notes in a small notebook she'd pulled from her bag, documenting times, statements, and rulings. During a brief recess, she noticed a court clerk studying her with unusual intensity. The woman, whose nameplate read Vanessa Kwan, tilted her head slightly, as if trying to place Olivia's face. Olivia kept her expression neutral, but she recognized the first signs of recognition. Vanessa had likely seen the appointment announcement in the judicial newsletter. The defense attorney approached the bench during the recess, engaging in a friendly, hushed conversation with Harrington. Their easy familiarity, complete with shared laughter while glancing toward the Parkers, only confirmed what Olivia had suspected from the case files. When court resumed, Harrington seemed distracted, occasionally glancing in Olivia's direction. His earlier confidence had diminished slightly. Perhaps Vanessa had whispered something to him, or maybe her calm reaction to his mockery had planted seeds of doubt. Your Honor, the defense attorney spoke smoothly, given today's developments, we'd like to propose a settlement conference rather than continuing these proceedings. Harrington nodded approvingly. A reasonable suggestion, Counselor. The court would welcome resolution without further delays. Olivia watched as the Parkers conferred with their attorney, who seemed eager to accept any offer. Maya Parker appeared close to tears. As if suddenly remembering Olivia's presence, Harrington addressed the courtroom. I'll remind all observers that settlement discussions are confidential, and any attempt to interfere will result in removal and possible contempt charges. His eyes locked with Olivia's, the warning unmistakable. When the attorneys disappeared into the conference room, Olivia slipped out of the courtroom. She checked her watch, nearly noon. In the hallway, she spotted Chief Justice Torres walking toward courtroom 3, accompanied by a court administrator carrying a leather portfolio. Olivia quickened her pace toward the ladies' room. She needed a moment to decide how to proceed. Her reconnaissance had yielded exactly what she'd suspected: preferential treatment, intimidation of ordinary citizens, and a clear pattern of bias. The bathroom door swung open behind her as she stood at the sink. Judge Reed. Vanessa Kwan stood in the doorway, her expression a mixture of confusion and dawning recognition. It is you, isn't it? I saw your appointment announcement, but I didn't realize. Why are you dressed like that? And why did Judge Harrington? Olivia turned slowly, her finger to her lips. It's complicated, Vanessa, she said quietly, and about to become much more so. Olivia reapplied her lipstick with deliberate calm, watching Vanessa's reflection in the mirror. This isn't exactly how I planned today to go, she admitted, capping the lipstick. Vanessa looked nervously toward the door. Judge Harrington, he humiliated you in front of everyone. If he knew who you were. But he doesn't, Olivia replied, turning to face the clerk directly. At least not yet. And I'd appreciate your discretion for just a little longer. Vanessa hesitated. The Chief Justice is here. They're gathering in courtroom 3 for some announcement. Her eyes widened in sudden understanding. It's about you, isn't it? Your official introduction. Olivia nodded. Moved up from next week, apparently. The Chief Justice was concerned about my unconventional approach. I should go, Vanessa said anxiously. They'll notice I'm missing. Of course, Olivia agreed. Would you mind giving me a moment, though? I'd prefer to make my entrance after everyone's assembled. After Vanessa left, Olivia took a deep breath, straightening her hoodie. This wasn't how she'd envisioned her first day at the courthouse, but perhaps it was better this way. She'd witnessed firsthand what needed changing. Meanwhile, in courtroom 3, confusion reigned. The Parkers and their attorney had returned from the settlement room looking dejected. The defense team wore satisfied smiles, and Judge Harrington was speaking with Chief Justice Torres, his expression growing increasingly concerned. What do you mean, introduce her today? Harrington hissed. I haven't even met her yet. The Chief Justice, a formidable woman in her 60s, regarded Harrington coolly. She's been quite eager to observe your courtroom procedures, Philip. I believe you've already made quite an impression. Harrington's face paled slightly. What are you talking about, Eleanor? Before she could answer, the courtroom doors opened. Olivia Reed walked in, still dressed in her blue hoodie and jeans, but now carrying herself with unmistakable authority. The courtroom fell silent. Harrington stared, recognizing the woman he'd publicly humiliated just an hour earlier. The blood drained from his face as realization dawned. No, he whispered. Olivia approached the bench, nodding respectfully to Chief Justice Torres before turning to face the gallery. For those who don't know me, she began, her voice clear and steady. I'm Olivia Reed. As of next Monday, I'll be taking over as presiding judge of this court following Judge Harrington's retirement. Gasps and murmurs erupted throughout the courtroom. The defense attorney's smug expression vanished. The Parkers looked confused, then amazed. I want to thank Judge Harrington for the illuminating demonstration of his courtroom procedures today, Olivia continued, meeting his gaze directly. It's been most educational. Harrington's jaw worked silently, his earlier confidence evaporated. Chief Justice Torres stepped forward. Judge Reed requested an opportunity to observe court proceedings before her official start date. Though her methods were, she paused, giving Olivia a pointed look, unconventional, her dedication to understanding this court's dynamics is commendable. The court administrator opened the leather portfolio, removing official documents bearing the state Supreme Court seal. I had planned to do this more formally next week, the Chief Justice continued, but since we're all here, Philip Harrington, after 30 years of service, we formally acknowledge your retirement effective this Friday. She turned to Olivia. Olivia Reed, the governor has confirmed your appointment to this bench, with full duties and responsibilities to commence Monday morning. Olivia accepted the documents with a solemn nod. I look forward to serving this community with fairness and respect, she said, her eyes sweeping the courtroom before landing on the Parkers. Every person who enters this courtroom deserves to be heard with dignity, regardless of status or representation. For the first time that day, Maya Parker smiled. The courtroom remained stunned into silence. Judge Harrington stood stiffly beside the bench, his authority visibly diminished. Court staff watched wide-eyed as the power dynamic they'd known for years inverted before them. In light of today's unique circumstances, Chief Justice Torres said, breaking the tension, I suggest we adjourn the current proceedings until next week. Harrington finally found his voice. With all due respect, Your Honor, I'm still presiding judge until Friday. I see no reason to disrupt the court calendar. Olivia, standing her ground in her casual attire, addressed the Parkers directly. Would your family be amenable to a brief postponement, with assurance that your case will receive full and fair consideration next week? Mr. Parker looked from Harrington to Olivia, then at his daughter Maya. Yes, Your Honor. We would. The defense attorney immediately objected. Your Honor, Chief Justice, this is highly irregular. We were on the verge of a settlement. A settlement negotiated under duress and imbalanced representation is hardly justice, Olivia interjected calmly. Harrington's face flushed. I have never presided over an unfair proceeding in my 30 years on this bench. The courtroom held its breath at this direct confrontation. Chief Justice Torres raised her hand. This isn't the time or place for such discussions. Court is adjourned until Monday morning, when Judge Reed will officially preside. As people began gathering their belongings, Olivia approached the Parkers quietly. I'd like to assure you that your case will receive proper consideration, she told them. Equal time, equal weight to your concerns. Maya Parker's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. We've been fighting for so long, and nobody seemed to listen. Olivia nodded. That will change. Across the room, Vanessa Kwan was already removing Harrington's nameplate from the bench. Other staff members averted their eyes as the retiring judge stalked toward his chambers, his scheduled farewell reception suddenly awkward under the circumstances. The defense attorney approached Olivia cautiously. Judge Reed, I hope you understand that I was simply representing my client's interests vigorously. Olivia met his gaze evenly. Of course, Counselor. And I expect you'll continue to do so, within the bounds of equitable procedure and professional courtesy to all parties. His smile faltered. Certainly, Your Honor. As the courtroom cleared, Chief Justice Torres touched Olivia's arm lightly. This wasn't exactly what I had in mind when I agreed to your observation request. Olivia smiled slightly. I know. But it was necessary. You've made quite an entrance, Torres noted dryly. Harrington won't forgive this humiliation easily. This wasn't about humiliating him, Olivia replied. It was about seeing the truth of how justice is administered here. Torres studied her thoughtfully. Well, Judge Reed, it appears you have your work cut out for you. Olivia looked around the courtroom, her courtroom come Monday morning. Yes, she agreed. I certainly do. Monday morning arrived bright and clear. Olivia Reed stood before the mirror, straightening her black judicial robe. The weight of responsibility settled comfortably on her shoulders. The weekend news had covered the unusual courtroom revelation, with legal blogs speculating about the implications of her unorthodox introduction. The judicial community was abuzz with the story, some criticizing her methods, others applauding her commitment to transparency. As she entered the courthouse, Olivia noticed the difference immediately. Gone was the invisibility of Friday's visit. Court officers nodded respectfully. Attorneys paused their conversations to greet her. Even the security guard stood a little straighter. She paused at the doorway to courtroom 3, taking a moment to compose herself. Her name now adorned the judge's entrance. Inside, the room was packed. The Parker family sat in the front row, looking hopeful. The defense attorney stood conversing with colleagues, his manner more subdued than before. Vanessa Kwan approached, offering a thick folder. Your first day's docket, Judge Reed. And these came for you. She gestured toward the bench, where a modest arrangement of flowers sat with a card from the courthouse staff. Thank you, Vanessa. At precisely 9 a.m., Olivia entered her courtroom. All rise, called the bailiff. The room stood as one. Olivia took her place at the bench, surveying the faces before her, attorneys, defendants, plaintiffs, families, observers, each one deserving of respect and fair consideration. Please be seated, she said. Before we begin today's proceedings, I want to establish my expectations for this court. She leaned forward slightly. In this courtroom, everyone will be heard. Everyone will be treated with dignity. Justice requires nothing less. She opened the first case file. Parker versus Blackwell Financial Advisors, she announced. Both parties ready? And with that, a new chapter of justice began.